Hello and welcome to our video on how much to spend on an engagement ring. If you're about to propose to your partner, you might be wondering how much you should spend on a ring. In this video, we'll take a look at the various factors that can influence the cost of an engagement ring, as well as some guidelines to help you decide on a budget that works for you and your partner. First, let's talk about the tradition of giving an engagement ring. This tradition dates back to ancient Rome, when rings were exchanged as a symbol of a promise to marry. The concept of a diamond engagement ring specifically became popular in the 20th century, thanks in part to a clever marketing campaign by the De Beers Diamond Company. Today, it's common for couples to exchange rings as a symbol of their commitment to each other. Now, let's get to the question at hand. How much should you spend on an engagement ring? There's no one-size-fits-all answer to this question, as it depends on a variety of factors. Some people might argue that you should spend a certain percentage of your income on the ring, while others might suggest that you should spend what you can afford. Ultimately, the decision should be based on your own financial situation and your partner's preferences. Here are some factors to consider when deciding on a budget. 1. Your income. When it comes to deciding how much to spend on an engagement ring, many people consider their income as a factor. The idea behind this is that the cost of the ring should be proportional to how much money you make. The most commonly cited rule in this regard is the 2-month salary rule, which suggests that you should spend the equivalent of 2 months' worth of your income on an engagement ring. For example, if you make $50,000 a year, you would spend around $8,333 on the ring. However, it's important to note that the 2-month salary rule is just a guideline, and not a hard and fast rule. In fact, many financial experts suggest that this rule is outdated and arbitrary. For one, it doesn't take into account individual circumstances or financial goals. For example, if you have significant debt or other financial obligations, spending 2 months' salary on a ring might not be the wisest decision. Similarly, if you're saving up for a house or planning to start a family soon, you might want to allocate your money differently. Additionally, the 2-month salary rule assumes that your income is a reliable indicator of your financial situation, but this isn't always the case. For example, if you have a high income but also high expenses, your discretionary income might be much lower than someone with a lower income but lower expenses. Ultimately, the decision of how much to spend on an engagement ring should be based on your own financial situation and your partner's preferences. While income can be a factor to consider, it shouldn't be the only factor, and you should also take into account other factors such as your values, your long-term goals, and your partner's expectations. 2. Your partner's expectations. When considering how much to spend on an engagement ring, it's important to think about your partner's expectations. Your partner's expectations may include things like the type of ring they want, the style, the brand, or even the size of the diamond. It's worth noting that your partner's expectations may be influenced by a variety of factors, including their personal taste, cultural or social expectations, and their own experiences or desires. Some people may have specific ideas about what they want their engagement ring to look like, while others may be more flexible. To get a sense of your partner's expectations, you may want to have a conversation with them about what they are looking for in an engagement ring. You can ask them about their preferred styles, metals, and stones, and get a sense of whether they have any specific brand preferences or other requirements. It's important to remember that while it's nice to give your partner a ring that they will love, it's also important to stay within your budget and not overspend on a ring that you can't afford. If your partner has very specific expectations that are beyond your budget, it may be worth having a conversation about what is realistic and feasible for both of you. Ultimately, the decision about how much to spend on an engagement ring should be based on a variety of factors, including your partner's expectations, your own financial situation, and your shared values and priorities. By having an open and honest conversation with your partner about their expectations, you can make an informed decision that works for both of you. 3. Your values. When it comes to the value system of an individual or a couple, there are many factors that can come into play. Some people may value material possessions and the status that comes with them, while others may place more importance on experiences and personal growth. When it comes to engagement rings, someone who values material possessions may feel that it's important to spend a large amount of money on a ring to show their partner how much they care. On the other hand, someone who values experiences may feel that the money could be better spent on a trip or adventure that they can share with their partner. It's also worth noting that values can change over time. For example, someone who may have valued material possessions in the past may come to realize that experiences and personal growth are more important to them as they grow older and gain more life experience. Ultimately, the value system of an individual or couple should be taken into account when deciding on a budget for an engagement ring. If you and your partner have different values, it's important to have an open and honest conversation about what's important to each of you and come to a decision together. 4. Your future goals. When you're deciding how much to spend on a ring, it's important to consider your long-term financial goals. For example, if you're planning on buying a house or starting a family soon, you might not want to spend a lot on a ring. This is because you'll have other expenses to save for and prioritize. Similarly, if you have other financial goals such as saving for retirement or paying off debt, you might not want to spend a lot on a ring. It's important to consider how the purchase of an engagement ring fits into your overall financial plan. Of course, this doesn't mean that you can't spend a significant amount on a ring if you value it and it's within your means. However, it's important to make sure that you're not sacrificing other important financial goals in the process. Ultimately, the decision of how much to spend on a ring should be based on your financial situation, your partner's preferences, and your long-term goals. By considering all of these factors, you can make a decision that works for you and your partner, both in the present and the future. So, how much should you actually spend on an engagement ring? As we mentioned earlier, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. However, there are some guidelines that can help you make a decision. Here are a few to consider. 1. The 2-month rule. Some people suggest that you should spend the equivalent of 2 months' salary on an engagement ring. However, this guideline has been criticized for being outdated and arbitrary. 2. The 1% rule. Another guideline is to spend 1% of your total net worth on an engagement ring. This can help ensure that the ring is a meaningful symbol of your commitment, without breaking the bank. 3. Your own comfort level. Ultimately, the decision should be based on your own financial situation and your partner's preferences. If you're comfortable spending more or less than the above guidelines suggest, that's okay. In conclusion, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to the question of how much to spend on an engagement ring. It's important to consider your own financial situation, your partner's preferences, and your long-term goals when making a decision. Remember that the ring is just a symbol of your commitment to each other, and what really matters is the love and respect you have for each other. Good luck and congratulations on your engagement. That concludes our video on how much to spend on an engagement ring. Remember, the decision ultimately depends on your own financial situation and your partner's preferences. It's important to consider factors like your income, your partner's expectations, your values, and your future goals when making a decision. Whatever you decide, the most important thing is that the ring is a symbol of your love and commitment to each other. Thank you for watching, and congratulations on your engagement.